What's up, folks? We're going to go ahead and jump into our first episode of the Scum Meta Watch, and that's the Scum and Villainy faction in the X-Wing Miniatures game. I'm going to jump right into some of the data, talk about where this information is coming from, and then just talk through the current winners in the faction. These are the pieces getting list built with the most, the ones making the most appearances at tournaments, and the ones occasionally making cut or actually winning some events. We've had a lot of talk about how the Scum faction is just dead in the water. It sucks to be a Scum pilot right now. But there are some really good pieces in the meta, some of them already showing up, and then others I'm definitely going to talk about in a couple episodes after this, where we're talking about some of the pieces that are less explored and some of the just straight up weird stuff that's out there. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go about it fairly quickly here. We'll share that screen. All right, there we go. So a couple big things I wanted to make sure to highlight here. So again, this is all coming from various different data sources. I am in the Gold Squadron Podcast Discord. I'm on the Fly Better Podcast Facebook. I'm in the Atomic Mass Games official Discord. And I have a couple players that I play with locally, and then I'm always consuming all of the podcasts I can get. Of course, Gold Squadron Podcast. Then there is the Yaxby, yet another X-Wing podcast, and then the Planning Phase Syndicate. These are all different podcasts I've been following at the moment, just to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of the game. So kind of talk through where everything is. I'm going to run through real quick some of the data sources you can get. There is List Fortress, which does a really good job of curating and keeping track of tournament lists. So this will show you the tournament results, who's winning, what's performing well, the actual builds of the players. You'll see some of the more famous players out there in some of this data popping up here and there. And then it does give you a good idea of what's being played. So if you want to jump into the game, you want to play something competitive, but you don't want to deal with building a list, this is a really great resource to go ahead and find some lists you can just pick up and try. Next up, we've got MetaWing. Oh, and I should mention that List Fortress is the one that I personally use. There is also Longshanks, which is another piece that, well, excuse me, won't go into that. Never mind. We'll focus the ones I know. That is one of the things out there, but I won't get into that right now. Meta.listfortress.com is a very cool data analysis tool attached to List Fortress. So any lists that are put into List Fortress are also included in some statistical analysis here. And this is a cool thing to check. I won't go into it too much because, again, we have a lot to cover today. Then we also have advancedtargeting.computer. This, I am not sure how much this is being updated, but it's one of my personal favorites because it is really easy to update the data in this, just kind of filter individually, but can be a little bit funky. I reached out to see if this is still being updated. I honestly don't know, but it still is a cool tool, and I wanted to be sure to highlight it. And this has the option to sort by pilot, by upgrade, not by faction as far as I know. And I've got another screen of that. We'll skip that. Then we've got pinkbrainmatter.com. This is a super numbers heavy one. This one gets really, really into the weeds with your pie charts and analysis, which is a really fun one to get into if you love numbers. And then we've got finally Pattern Analyzer, pattern-analyzer.app. This is one that I enjoy a lot as well. It is obviously visual heavy, so you're seeing it currently load the information on here. Any second now. While this is loading, I do want to highlight that these are really important tools, and I really, really enjoy having this information to use it. But we have to be aware of the limitations as well. So X-Wing has a lot of players internationally, but it's still a fairly small sample size if you're looking for statistical significance. The other thing too is that all of this data can only include the publicly listed information. Doesn't include playtest. Come on, what's going on here? Doesn't include playtesting. It doesn't include, try jumping to something else. It doesn't include the things that are being played that aren't being included in List Fortress. It doesn't include any lists, any List Fortress tournament where someone doesn't input their list. So this is only going to show what people are playing competitively. If people are missing something, if something hasn't been tried, it will not appear in this data. So for as cool as it is to see and as good of a reference as it can be, we shouldn't consider it the be all and end all of all the information about this. That said, your knee-jerk emotional response to things also isn't necessarily the be all end all. It's all just a mix of things we should use to kind of judge content here. All right, jumping back to the important stuff. So I'm going to look into Yaxby. Just real quick, I've pulled up just a list of the pilots that appear the most often, that just kind of been popping up in Scum lists since the latest points change, and have sort of filtered to the top a little bit in sort of competitiveness or where they're being used more. There are also a couple pilots that came up a lot that have fallen off this list who I've not included. Top of that list being Scum Han. The Scum Falcon is just in a bad spot. spends most of his time just all of your build points, all of your time playing, all of your actual play style, all of that is really devoted to compensating for its weaknesses rather than leaning into its strengths, which is not a good place to be in. So even though it got a price cut and saw a lot of play at the beginning of the points change in the early months of this and the middle months of this summer, I think we can comfortably say that the Scum Falcon is not the secret magic bullet of the Scum faction right now. But hey, you want to argue with me? Let's do it. Let's hear it. So top of the list, we have the Fang fighter Fen Rao, of course, the Initiative 6 Fang fighter. The pilot himself, who's been a signature pilot of the faction for a long time, brings a Fang fighter chassis, which is a great piece, with Initiative 6, an ability that gives you extra dice if you're at range 1 on offense or defense with no limit. If you somehow trigger a bonus attack, or if you, so what has he got? I don't think there's any way for Fen to get a bonus attack, but anyway, if you attack or defend, and no matter how many times you defend, if the attack range is 1, you get 1 additional die. Now, Fenrau is really, really good. Still 6 points, though. And the thing about Scum is the 6 and 4 point blocks are very, very deep. So you have to sort of look at Fenrau and be like, he's really good, but is he worth the same as a YV666 or an ST70 or something else there? The answer to that one is probably. But one of the problems with Fang Fighters, that's been mitigated a lot with the changes and upgrades for, we've got the new Beskar reinforced blading and then the Mandalorian optics, both things that really help kind of mitigate or raise the floor for Fang Fighters, because Fang Fighters really struggle with durability and consistency because they can struggle to get dice mods on offense or defense, especially both, and they have trouble with durability. So these two being a total of 6 points for both gives you that offensive mod with your locks and defensive mod for plating that puts all Fang Fighters, both Scum and Rebel, much higher on the competitive list than they have been for a long time. And that's on top of the price cuts to the ships themselves. Most of them also saw a cut in loadout, including Fen Rao, although his is still very, very high. Some of the more common upgrades you're seeing on Fen, especially now, is I think, what is it? Marksmanship Predator, Crackshot Predator, shield upgrade, burnout thrusters, afterburners. You can do pretty much anything with him if you want to bump up his durability, bump up his offense reliability, whatever you want to do there. I believe he has the points to do both. What can you do? He could do Beskar and shield upgrade. Yeah, and marksmanship or clan training. I would do clan training personally. That's another fun one that allows Fangs to do something other than a focus action and then treat that as a linked focus action if they're in the position they really want to be. So if you want the world's most durable Fen Rao, there you go right there. You've got the crit mitigation of Beskar, you've got the just straight up shield upgrade, and then you've got the extra token option of clan training, so you can choose to do your red focus action after you've seen the full board state rather than when you first bump, for example. So he's a very powerful piece, comes up a lot. I am personally a little bit down on Fen because he is a 6 point Fang fighter. Again, that's being a lot. And he's still a Fang fighter. So for everything he brings to the table, I am not certain he's worth that extra 2 points over taking a 4 point Fang fighter, especially if you could pay 8, just an additional 2 points, the same as a Z95, to bring 2 Fang fighters. I do think that personally, I would rank two 4 point Fang fighters dramatically higher than Fen, even at the 6 point, like especially because of the 6 point price cost. You're seeing Rebel Fen perform dramatically a lot, in part because he is 5 points, which makes him better. Sorry, cat. Okay, we're going to go through. I've been going fairly slowly. I wanted to spend some extra time on Fen because he's one of the single most potent and most common pieces seen. And I do think that there is room to test and experiment with other Fang fighters more aggressively. Next up, we have Dace Bonearm in the HWK290. Wonderful ship. One of my favorite models in the game. Got a lot of nostalgia with that from the Jedi Knight and Dark Forces video games. But Dace is a pilot I know nothing about in lore. He's just there. And right now he's included in a ton of Scum lists because he has access to the title. The Moldy Crow title lets him hold on to focus tokens and adds a 3-die primary forward arc. And also because he has 4 points. Now, he doesn't have anything else really outstanding. The dial is pretty funky. A 0 stop is fun for objective play and to really tweak your opponent's noses. But he's still initiative 4, so you're rarely going to have the board state knowledge to really decide what you're going to do. Does have access to the red jam action and does have 12 loadout. Some of the more common things you see on him, people mix in bombs. I usually see Fearless on him quite often. One of my favorite go-to upgrades for him is Lando Crew, that 4 point crew option, because it lets you spend focuses for a reroll. So if he's sitting on 3 or 4 focuses, you can shoot double modded shots and still do a different action. Like you spend your first couple turns building up focus tokens, and then in your following turns, you can jam, you can rotate, you can lock, focus, whatever you want to do, and spend 2 focuses per attack for a double modded attack. Very cool build. But it's important to note that he can be a carrier for literally any of the Scum crew. And so I also use him as a Hondo Onaka crew carrier to get that long range jam and or coordinate. Now I'm going to talk about Hondo a lot in Scum because I think he's an incredibly powerful piece. And the option of doing either jam or coordinate as you choose on friendlies or enemies is amazing. It's best on initiative 6, but at I4, it's not bad because it's a 4-point carrier. And I'll talk about him more in some other chassis as well. Won't cover that too much. One of the more surprising pieces I see used very often with Dace is Fearless, because since the title adds a full forward primary front arc, you can use Fearless, and that makes him a little bit more reliable on damage output when you get into the scrum, and allows you to be more free with alternative actions aside from target lock focus. So cool piece, seeing him a lot. Great at that 4 slot. Again, I mentioned that the 6 and 4 slots are very deep in Scum. You're going to see a bunch of ships in that band on this list. Jumping to the next one, we see the Rogue Class Starfighter, and this is one I'm going to touch on more as well. I did a Rogue Class Starfighter base breakdown. The 2 you're going to see the most often are Dirge for the Initiative 5. He's got less loadout than the others. Well, he's got, I believe, the lowest loadout of the named Scum pilots, but he still has plenty for a talent or 2, so you can do like marksmanship, you can do Predator. I see Fearless a lot on him to mitigate those close range shots. I do see him run a lot with Proton Cannon. And proton cannons are, go ahead and throw it on there, one of the weirder weapons available in the game. It's bullseye only, so that's a thing to note, but it's also 4 attack dice that doesn't require target lock to shoot, which for me makes it worth bringing in, even if you have to be a little bit cagey about when you get those shots. You also can only fire it every other turn. So chances are you're not going to have bullseye every round, so it will still recharge naturally. And it does have a passive mod where you can change a focus to a hit or a crit. And a passive mod on a 4-die attack is awesome. It's bullseye only, but it's a non-lock proton torpedo. This is a good weapon, very good weapon, especially coming in at the 4-point range. Now with these ships, you can also do 2 cannons. So you could do ion cannon jamming beam, ion cannon HLC, and that is exactly the 10 points that Dirge has. It's not necessarily the best combo. I like proton cannons and then keeping the loadout for other upgrades. But yeah, Dirge is one that comes up a lot. The Initiative 5, the 4 cost, decently durable, good dial. Let's take a look back at that dial. That dial over there is pretty good. It's not great. One of the more common pieces you see on these guys was, for a long time, engine upgrade. But as people are playing with these ships more, while engine upgrade is a very valuable piece, the loadout is limited and you have a ton of slots. So I'm seeing people take that less, but it's definitely a thing to consider if you're using otherwise cheaper upgrades. I'm going to talk about Cad. And Dirge's ability, I didn't even mention it. It's about durability, but it's a bit weird. It's not the same level of durability as the Separatist Dirge. It's still good. If you're hit with what? A hit crit? No, if you take 2 hits, you can take a single crit and negate the other hit and hope that it's not a horrible crit. It's not great, but it can trigger and it can save you games. So it's not something to ignore, but it's not a reason to take him either. But I do see people run him with Enduring to kind of maximize that ability, which actually doesn't max. Well, it does. So you'd cancel 1 crit and then use his ability to knock out a 2nd crit and then lose the hit. So it's not the worst upgrade to bring, but it is expensive. We'll just talk about that one in a minute. So Cad Bane, next up, his ability is after you perform an attack that hits, you may spend 2 charges, and they are recurring, so you can do this every other turn, to transfer 1 of your non-lock red or orange tokens to the defender. Absolutely great ability. A lot of people will deliberately stress him and then take that proton cannon shot to go ahead and knock that extra damage through. Now you can do things like you could do synced cannons, and we'll go ahead and talk about those real quick. And I won't spend as much time on the other ships, but these guys come up a lot. Synced cannons give you that full forward arc 3-die attack, and you can do that and trick shot to add an extra die if you're shooting through a rock. And with the mods you can get in a rogue, that's a decent way to get 4-die attacks at long range. And the reason I bring that up is, again, with Cad's ability, you want to land those hits when you have them so that you can pass off those red or orange tokens. So you can stress Cad and pass off a stress. You can jam Cad and pass off a jam. And a lot of players will bring the now extremely expensive but very good. Oh, excuse me. So Cad can take the title, the Xanadu Blood title. So he's able to cloak, which is important to note, and then also gets access to crew. And a lot of people will take, and I've already used up too much loadout, so it's hiding this stuff for me. A lot of people will take Zuckuss. There you are, 6 points. Because Zuckuss is, while you perform an attack, if you are not stressed, you may choose one defense die and gain one stress token. If you do, the defender must reroll that die. So you roll into the fight, you have your mods, you get a good shot, you know what your results are already before they roll their dice. And you can, if you have a good, like say you've got 3 hits, you're like, all right, whatever. They roll 2 evades. You just take a stress to make them re-roll one of those and probably won't be another evade. Or maybe it rolls to an eyeball and forces them to spend a mod, whatever it turns out to be. You have good chances there. You can be confident to take that stress and know that you're going to land that hit. So you can then pass that hit off to that target fighter. So that's really, really good to be able to throw stresses on people. And this is another case where the proton cannon is very strong. Cad is only initiative 4, so a lot of people are a little bit wary of a bullseye specific weapon, but he still has attacks outside of that bullseye. They're just not quite as strong. But when you land those bullseyes, they hit hard. And especially with the number of large and medium bases gumming up the board these days, you will pretty much always have bullseye shots when you want to take one. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. A lot of players are bringing these guys with the proton cannons, that bullseye weapon, and it's working well. So definitely worth considering. Another note about Cad, though, is you don't necessarily have to lean into his ability, and he has 13 loadout and access to every single possible Scum crew option. You could throw Zam in there to give him bonus attacks, throw Savage in there to give him a force crew. It's not necessarily the best use of loadout, but the option is there. You can even do something like Rook Cast over here, where you can then take a red target lock and then you get a passive mod. So, but you take a strain token to do it. So, but yeah, there's some really cool stuff you can do with Cad. So definitely play around and see what weird and wacky things you can do with him, because the chassis solid, the pilot's solid. 4 squad points is a great utility piece to fill up a lot of holes in squads, and there's a lot you can do with them that hasn't been tried. Next up, we have the ST-70. I personally really don't like flying this thing because it has no blue maneuvers aside from straights and has a ton of red on that dial. Also, the Mandalorian, being the I-5 version of it, is probably the more powerful piece, especially because of the ability, while you defend or perform an attack, if you are in the forward arc at range 1 to 2 of 2 or more enemy ships, you may change one of your blank results to an eyeball result. That's a free eyeball mod. That's a free mod from a blank to an eyeball. And then one of the most common crew pieces with Mando is the Child. Boom, the Child for 7 points. And then Mando is also Mandalorian. So you have access to any of the Mandalorian upgrades. So you can also do clan training if you want to stress yourself. And then you can also have access to illicits. I believe most people, you can do Dead Man Switch or Hotshot Tail Blaster if you want to, if you don't want to blow up your own ships. And then if you do take an illicit, you can take the title. Actually, I believe you can take the title anytime. Yeah, you can take the title. Yes. So a great thing about this is you don't actually have to do that. You take the title and then you have a face down illicit card, whatever illicit you want to do that's non-limited. It can't be a pipped one. And then you can just reveal that whenever you want in game. That is super powerful with what is it called? False transponder codes, which is a 5-point illicit upgrade, and you can take it for free on Mando, which is really, really good. False transponder codes, not pipped. Boom. So then when one of the downsides of false transponder codes is your opponent can choose to lock you early and disable it, and so you don't get to choose it. But with this, you get to hold it until you want to use it, which is really, really good. So this build right here, you then still have another 2 points you can play with. A lot of people will do BT1 or Boba Fett, whatever you want to do there. Or you can do an actual illicit, or for stress mitigation, you can take electronic baffle. Now, the Child crew, just to go through it, this does give 2 of your opponent ships, and they choose which, free target locks. So if they shoot at you, they get a target lock. They can acquire a lock after that shot. A lot of people don't take the Child because of that, but he's 7 points for 2 force, which don't recur, but anytime you defend, you gain 1 back. This is a big fat target on the board that people are going to shoot at, so you're basically guaranteed to get that back. And if I recall, okay, it does not have the reinforce action natively, so that's a bummer, but it does have the evade action natively, so you can get away with some of that. I will say that giving your opponents a free lock is a problem, but chances are they were already getting those locks anyway. You're seeing target locks all over the place. A free one, of course, frees them up to do other actions or mods, which is not great, but it's not as big of a penalty as it sounds like on paper. to be able to have 2 force on a ship that can add focus results to its dice is really, really good. Yes, so we're seeing the Mandalorian come up a lot in some tournament results and actually perform fairly well. Being a medium base, he's not as chunky as the large base 6-pointers you get in the faction, so you can kind of have a little bit more of control of the board space. And with the increased number of ships on the board, his ability is likely to trigger a whole lot more often. So you roll in, you focus, you have the focus to deal with offense or defense. Then you also have the child. You can throw in a coordinator to give him some other options as well. Very strong piece, even if the ship is somewhat challenging to fly. A couple other builds I've seen with him, I've seen Kira crew, so you can ignore rocks that you lock, included with or without Mandalorian optics, which he is a Mandalorian. So you can take that Mandalorian optics to, where's that? You can do Beskar, you can do engine upgrade? No. You can do Beskar or you can do Mandalorian optics, which will give you free target locks in the system phase. And the combination of Mandalorian optics and Kira means you can target lock the rock in front of you in the system phase, fly over it, and then do whatever action you want, including a follow-up target lock, because Kira allows you to ignore that rock. So there's a lot you can do with it. I personally don't love flying the ship, but I'm certainly going to try it more now that it has been winning some tournament, showing up in some cuts and tournament results. So there's that. Next up is Dr. Aphra. This being in the YV666, has that beautiful full 180 front arc that is just a giant firing hole. Comes stock with that wide evade, which is very nice, and just all the slots you could want in the world. And her ability is, before you engage, you may spend 1 green token and 1 charge. She has 3 of these to spend throughout the game. If you do, you may choose another ship at range 0 to 1 that is not stressed. The chosen ship gains 1 stress token. Now, so an obvious pick on Aphra is the Overtune Modulators. And that's a really good one because that just straight up gives you 3 calculate tokens. So you can freely spend 1 without worrying about having a green token to spend for mods and using her ability. So that's a great piece. It's a single use for the game, or for the round, but yeah. Obviously combos beautifully with the crew 000, which is her crew, so that absolutely makes sense. And then also combos well with the Gunner BT1. And even if you do that, you still have 12 points left to spend. You are using a crew and the gunner slot to do that, but it still is a nice combination here. And the reason those two combo well is 000 is start of engagement, you may choose 1 enemy ship at range 0 to 1. If you do, you gain 1 calculate token unless that ship chooses to gain 1 stress token. The beauty here is that they don't want to give you the calculate because then you can spend it to give someone a stress token anyway. But they don't want to take the stress because they don't want to take the stress. So what you can do is you'll have 2 targets, say like, hey, you have to decide, do you give me a calculator, give me a stress? And they have to choose to take the stress on that ship or risk getting the stress on another ship. So great piece. But the reason that people end up taking Aphra is because of the loadout. And you'll see a lot of things like the Child and Rook cast crew. You'll see Gar Saxon Gunner, who lets her throw an additional die. The Gar Saxon, yeah. While you perform a target lock action, you can only choose an object in your forward or rear arc. So this does cost you some target locks. But when you perform a primary attack, if the defender is in your forward or rear arc, you may remove 1 orange or red token from the defender to roll 1 additional die up to a maximum of 4. Any opportunity for a ship this big with this many mods to throw 4 dice, awesome. So that's where Aphra is coming up a great deal competitively. She's got a ton of loadout and a lot to play with, and again, has that giant arc. So you can really mess things up with this ship. So one of my personal favorite builds that I've seen with her is Lando crew, again, weird. And then what you do is, since she's a low initiative, I believe she's I3. Yeah, she's initiative 3. She's going to be shooting last in a lot of cases. So what you can do is take Lando crew. At your initiative 3, you take the reinforce action. So you reinforce for all the shots you're taking. And then Lando can spend the reinforce as a green token to reroll 2 results. So you can actually benefit from the reinforce action, but then still mod your attacks in your turn, which is awesome. So that's a really great combo. That's my personal favorite. Points and slots don't work out as well with a lot of the other options you can take, but I find a lot of value in that build personally. So there's that. And then I did put these 2 together on purpose. Libo, our standard loadout Libo, is actually coming up quite a bit. Some of the scarier playtesters and players I've seen are using Libo and Aphra together because people don't like to get close to Aphra. She's a very scary piece. You don't want to be a range 0 to 1 of her because she'll just stress the heck out of your ships. And then Libo, people want to get close to. So what you do is use Aphra as a screen to keep opponents from getting too close to Libo and abusing the sensor blackout, to where it's a lot easier to kill the YT-2400 up close. So what Aphra does is keep you from getting close, and then Libo shoots over her to get those sweet, sweet long-range bonus shots, which is a very scary combo. And either ships try to get through that, or they don't, and you can chase them down and shoot the crap out of them with both of these two. Both 6 points. They're 12. That gives you 8 points left to fill, which can be 2 4-pointers, a 6 and a 2, however you want to do that. Could be was that a 2 and 2 3s? There are a lot of ways you can fill 8 points, even if, especially if you already have those giant 6-point big blockers that can do a lot of damage. So cool pieces. I can't do this without going ahead and talking about fire sprays. Obviously not the bounty hunter, but you've got all of these chassis at 7 points. You can run 2 fire sprays and a 6 cost. You can run 2 fire sprays and 2 3 points. You can run 2 fire sprays and a 4 and a 2. There are a lot of ways to do double fire spray in Scum right now and make them very, very scary. Now, all of them have their loadout reduced a little bit, and some of their key upgrades have gone up. The one key thing I want to say about fire sprays is it's kind of the conventional wisdom that you have to run them with force crew. You can, I'm not going to argue against that, but the only upgrade that I personally would staple to a fire spray is veteran tail gunner, so that you get those bonus shots, especially because if you're taking a 7-point ship, you're sacrificing in the loadout or in the squad points you have elsewhere. So getting bonus attacks is a really good way to get the most out of them. So definitely that's my kind of strongest vote for those. I will talk about Hondo in more detail later, but the ones we're seeing the most often are Eamon or Ammon, Kath, and I think it's Koshka. Yeah, Koshka. Yes, Koshka is a great piece because while you defend or perform an attack, if the enemy ship is stressed, you may re-roll one of your dice, which is great. If you have noticed a theme, there are quite a few Scum ships that actually interact well with stress, and some of them that actually hand out stress. So she's another carrier for 000. So if you're up close and personal, you will want to encourage opponents to take stress. And they'll be naturally stressed throughout the game as well. So stress is just kind of a constant. That's a really good ability. It's not quite Boba Fett level, but that's why she's 7 points instead of 9. So yeah, double fire spray is certainly something to look at. It's an old, very powerful kind of build archetype, and fire sprays are still fire sprays. They did lose some mileage with the reduction in loadout value and with the general increase in number of ships on the table. So fly them with a little caution, but they are really, really powerful pieces, especially Eamon and Koshka being kind of the budget boba, and then also the bomb master himself who can drop devices with 3 templates. But then Crassus too is able to shoot cannons out the rear, which combos nicely with the Marauder title, I believe. Let me double check. Nope. Okay. So primary only. So it does not combo with Marauder. But Kath does, or Koshka does. So if you look at Koshka with Marauder and Fearless, let's see, let's go throw this in there. Fearless, there you go. Fearless and your veteran tail gunner. This is a ship that has a at range 1 in the forward arc, gets a free flip to a hit with Fearless. And then if your opponent is stressed, you get a reroll no matter whether it's front or back. Once you do a front arc attack, you can then do a rear arc attack as well. And then Marauder gives you a free reroll on that rear arc attack. So that's a very clean 8-point build with Koshka that makes her very scary, that then you also have another 8 points to play with and put whatever you want in there. Notice I have not used the crew slot yet. So you've got crew, illicit, modification, payload, cannon. There's a ton you can build around that. But those are kind of some really, really good standard pieces to put on a fire spray. I hesitate to use standard because I don't want to encourage groupthink where it's kind of like everybody should build the same way. So I put out a lot of options on each individual build because I want to encourage experimentation. So that whatever. And of course, you can't go through a Scum meta breakdown without mentioning Bosk, who is Bosk in the Z95, and note emphasis on the Z's because this is the Z95 version, not the YV666 version. He's your 2-pointer. He's a Z95, but you definitely get the bang for your buck for 2 points. Fills a lot of lists. Not a bad piece to include. Excuse me a second. One of my proudest tournament plays ever to date, and hopefully I don't embarrass anyone bringing up the story, but my Z95 Bosk has killed Darth Vader, TIE Advanced, scary Darth Vader, like customizable Vader, the expensive one. Just nailed him with a marksmanship double hit and killed him. Took him off the board. He was already hurt and ionized, and it was not great. But still, Boz is the one that got the kill, so I got to talk about that because he can do damage if ignored, and people can't ignore him. But he's 2 points, so if they shoot at him or chase him down, have fun. Couple other honorable mentions I want to throw out. Aphra is the most popular YV because of the loadout. Lats has the same loadout, and her ability is that you can choose a ship at range 1 and spend a lock to give them a tractor token. So you have to have the target lock, which is iffy, but to give a ship a free, like just to tractor a ship at the start of the engagement phase, just like, bloop, I'm going to move you, and suddenly your defense sucks, is really good, and it will discourage anyone from getting anywhere near that ship. Which is great because a lot of the time YVs will have enemies get behind them, and then they have a lot of trouble dealing with that. So you have your screener ships nearby, Lats pops the lock and just throws that ship somewhere dangerous, and then you take them apart to punish them for getting behind you. So certainly a honorable mention. And then of course, Bosk himself has the classic ability, while you perform a primary attack after neutralized result step, you may spend 1 crit to add 2 hit results to help you chainsaw through shields faster. But yeah, so that has to be an unblocked crit. That's something I want to make sure it's clear. You don't get to do that before defense dice are rolled. It's after. So that crit has to be going through before you can change it. So that's actually a little bit of a risk because you have to generate a crit, and then it could be eaten by something like Beskar Reinforced Plating or anything that negates crits, like Enduring. So there are ways to counter that, but I still think that Bosk puts out really, really good damage output. He's only 1 initiative higher than Aphra, so some of the stay builds still work. But the biggest reason people are down on him is because his loadout is 16. So you can't do a lot of the scarier combos on him. So I do also want to make sure to shout out Moralo Eval. If we're looking at ways to deal with some of the, say somebody's got control of the center of the board, there's a Han that's running away. Moralo Eval's ability is, if you would flee, you may spend 1. If you do, place yourself in reserves instead. And at the start of the next planning phase, place yourself within range 1 of the edge of the play area that you fled from. Rules note, that has to be wholly within range 1. So you can't do any angled deployment there. But you, turn 1, you do a hard turn, pop yourself off the board edge. Then you can pop back in the following turn in your opponent's deployment zone and just be like, I'm coming for you. Really scary ability. He can do that up to twice a game. For all we talk about it being easy to get behind YVs and then being somewhat difficult to maneuver, they are fast. So he can pop off the board, scream across the middle of it, just blowing ships up all the way, and then pop off on the far side and come back on. Now you get limited turns to pull this off, and it is kind of like a silly move to pull, but still a really powerful piece. Unfortunately, coming in at 7 points for Moralo, but there's a lot of power in that ability. Being a YV that you can't get behind and can't really predict where it's going to be. And with 20 loadout, he can do a lot of the offensive builds that you're seeing in the other YVs. Not quite to the same degree, being that 2 points short, but it's close. And you can make some very frightening Moralo Eval builds. So definitely play around with that. That is your cliff notes of kind of the current top performing ships in Scum at the moment. I will do some follow-ups where we talk about some more ships specifically, but hopefully this was helpful. Until next time.